Welcome to In the News for September the 6th, 2024. I am Brett Burney from appsandlaw.com.
And this is Jeff Richardson from iPhone JD. Hey, Brett.
Jeff, let's walk down memory lane 10 years ago.
Let's do it.
Shall
I like
we?
that.
Well, okay. In a few days, let me just give a little more context here. In a few days, we are going to hear the keynote from Apple on September 9th, Monday, September 9th. A little weird Monday. We talked about that last week. Mm-hmm. But Monday, September 9th, Apple is going to come and give a keynote, and boy, we are anticipating and expecting a few things. But before we get there, let's go back 10 years, shall we? Because almost exactly 10 years ago now is when we first heard that Apple was going to create this newfangled product called the Apple Watch. And I pulled up your post from 10 years ago now, Jeff, why lawyers will love the iPhone 6 and iPhone 6 Plus. Now, that was important in and of itself, but I love this in this second paragraph on your post here. The Apple Watch has the potential to be the next big thing for Apple. This is you writing about this 10 years ago. And there is so much to learn about, including so many details that Apple has yet to be revealed. And I am only beginning to understand this new product. You subsequently reviewed that a few months ago. We'll get into that in a little bit, but 10 years. And I just before we started recording, Jeff, you and I both remarked, we apparently both of us have had an Apple Watch on our wrist now almost every day for the last 10 years.
For almost
because
a decade,
it's been that good.
Yeah, when I was writing this post 10 years ago, I mean, my post was about the new iPhone. But like I said, I can't even start talking about the new iPhone because I first have to just say something about this Apple Watch thing because it was something so different. I mean, Apple had never really made a product that was like this, that you would be wearing, you know, potentially even 24/7, but at least all day long.
Right.
And like you say, sure enough, once I started to get my first Apple Watch, I have literally worn one every single day of my life since then. So it was and it's interesting because I remember that announcement very well from 10 years ago.
Yes.
One of the big people to do it was, I mean, of course, it was, you know, Tim Cook and other people from Apple were involved. But Kevin Lynch was the person that did a lot of those presentations. That's an Apple executive. He's gone on to do many other things at the company. But at the time, you could tell that on the one hand, Apple realized it had something special. But on the other hand, even they weren't 100% sure what people would be using it for. You know, nowadays we think of the Apple Watch of being, you know, alerts and notifications and getting quick glanceable information. And of course, exercise, which is a huge part of it.
So much more.
But at the time, Apple just did not know. And, you know, they used to have they spent a lot of time, for example, showing off a feature where you could like draw with your finger. And like somebody suggested you could like draw a picture of a fish and send that to a friend to say, let's go get seafood. Nobody does that, Brett. Nobody does that.
Right.
You know, there was another feature where you could like see what your heartbeat was and send that to somebody else.
I remember.
So that they could also
it had like a little boop, boop, like an EKG
that
thing.
Feature is still in there, but I think the last time I did it was about 10 years ago when I tried it for the first day and then never used it again.
Never again.
I sent mine to I sent one to Katie Floyd because she and I both had gotten our Apple Watches on the same, just like within hours of each other. She used to be the co-host of Mac Power Users, an attorney in Florida. But you know, Apple did not really know what the Apple Watch was for, but they knew they had something interesting, and that was 10 years ago. So I think it's really special that it will be 10 years to the day of that announcement, that we will see the announcement on Monday of the next, you know, version of the phone, of the watch, rather.
Yeah. Now, it's important to note now, September 2014 was when Apple announced it, but it actually wasn't available until several months after that, right, Jeff?
Right. Which, just to pause on that, Brett,
go ahead.
That's something that Apple does very rarely. The only time Apple ever does that is when they have a brand new product category. You know, the original iPhone, it was their first phone. And so they could announce the iPhone in January and have it not ship until that summer.
That's right.
Likewise with the Apple Vision Pro,
the iPad.
More recently, the iPad, you know, so the only time you see like many months between an announcement and the product is when it's a brand new category. So this is one of the rare. I mean, the iPhone, the iPad, the Apple Watch, the Apple Vision Pro. There's not many more that fall into the category like this, but this was one of them. So as you were about to say, it was announced in September, doesn't actually come out until the following April.
Yeah. Exactly. And then that's when you wrote a review. In fact, I see a post here. I love this little memory lane. April 23rd, 2015. You and I were actually together just around that time because we were at the ABA Tech Show. That's the American Bar Association. It's a conference that you and I have spoken at many, many years ago in 2015. But we always enjoyed that because it was in Chicago, and there was a couple of very nice Apple stores in Chicago that we would just go to, one on Michigan Avenue. I think that was the one that was the older one on Michigan Avenue,
the old one,
even though the newer one is, yeah. But I remember actually got a picture here. You went down to the Michigan Avenue store in April 2015, and you saw apparently that store had an Apple Watch on display, even though you couldn't get it yet. You had already done a pre-order for this, and
Yeah, I had pre-ordered it, and mine was going to come on a Friday. But I was at the tech show with. I see there's a picture of you there because you were the person that ran tech show that year.
I was the chair of the there's Katie Foley too.
Yeah, all sorts of great people. But yeah, so a bunch of us walked down to the Apple store in Michigan Avenue just to see what it actually looked like because we had seen it online, right? And so we had seen pictures of it, but we had never actually seen it in person. And again, you couldn't put it on or anything like that. I mean, it was under a locked case, but it was just interesting to actually see what it was going to look like just a few days before we would have one in our hands for the first time.
And just even 4 days after that, you posted your review of the original Apple Watch, April 27, 2015. And I remember talking to you then. We weren't obviously doing a podcast just quite yet. I wish we kind of were at that time. That would have been fun. But that was your initial impressions of the Apple Watch, which I mean, I can only assume. I know that you liked it at that point. You knew it was going to be something. Once you had it on the wrist, right? All of us, I think, knew like, okay, this is a little special.
Yeah. Although that original Apple Watch, I mean, even at the time, we all knew it was incredibly slow. And it definitely, when you look back on it now, oh my goodness, was it slow? It was ridiculous. You know, basically everything it did was really happening on the iPhone with it just being sort of projected onto the Apple Watch. It was really too slow to do a lot of things on its own. And yet it was something nice that you could glance at it. You know, you'd have to tap on the screen to make it come up or hold it up for it to come on. But you could see, you know, time and you could see notifications it was nice to have. And so, you know, this was the point in time when we were all, it's really not dissimilar to where we are right now with the Apple Vision Pro, that a bunch of us have been playing with one for a while, but we're all just trying to figure out what the future is going to be. But we could tell that it's going to be something special, although it's going to probably take a few years for it to get there. And the Apple Watch in April of 2015 was the same way. I mean, we could tell that this was something brand new. We were kicking the tires, trying to figure out what is it going to do? What could it do in the future? Is anybody going to buy the gold Apple Watch? Spoiler alert, no. And so that was the one and only year that Apple had the solid gold Apple Watch. You know, the idea of buying something that's that expensive, over $10,000, that you know because this technology was going to be obsolete when the next version comes out is still amazing to me. But I guess if you got lots of money, why not throw it around on that? But so there were all sorts of fun things, you know, at the original Apple Watch. It was just the introduction of something really new.
I like this first sentence or the second sentence you got right here. The original Apple Watch requires an iPhone and can be viewed as an iPhone accessory more than anything else. And I hadn't thought about that too much until I just read that there, because I feel like that's one of the big things, like over these last 10 years, it really has separated itself a little bit to where I went jogging yesterday and I just left my phone at the house. Like I can now use my Apple Watch so much more independently. And I feel like, you know, some people might look at that and say, wow, it took 10 years to do that. But then on the other hand, it's like, hey, now it's been 10 years. And the reason we're kind of walking down memory lane here is because I think I can speak for both of us. We feel like that the Apple Watch version 10 or Apple Watch X, whatever they decide they're going to call it, is going to be a pretty significant jump. I mean, we have both been talking about this for a long time. A lot of other people have been talking about this. I feel like even 10 years later, which again, some people would say, wow, it took 10 years, but after, you know, Apple has never been known to, you know, do anything on a fast scale. But I think now I think we're really going to see a very mature product that is just going to continue to get slimmed down. It's going to continue to get even more seamless and streamlined. That's, I think, I know that's what we're pretty excited about. And this is where we're getting to here. You linked to an article where Apple Watch Series 9, which wasn't a very big improvement, right? Over the 8, but we know that the Series 10 is going to be pretty good. And here are some rumors that you linked to in MacRumors here from Harley Charlton, which I thought really did a good job of kind of comparing, like, what are we anticipating?
Yeah, I mean, let's keep in mind, and you said this earlier, Brett, that Apple is really one for slow incremental improvements across all their product lines, and I think that that's definitely going to be true in the Apple Watch. But nevertheless, there are some times in the product history where it's a little bit more of a bump. One of those was the Series 7, which had a slightly bigger screen, and then from Series 7 to Series 8, and Series 8 to Series 9, they were very minor changes. I have a Series 9 that I'm wearing on my hand right now. It's really so close to the Series 7 that I had before. I mean, it's just a few minor differences. But the hope is that Series 10, just being the 10 years, the number 10, that wouldn't it be nice if this is a time for a big change? And I've been hearing rumors about this literally for 11 months now. Everybody's saying, hey, Series 10, that's going to be major. It's going to be a big one. No, I don't know if it will be. It might be just a small incremental change, or it might be a big change. We shall see. Some of the rumors that we have right now are contradictory. There do seem to be consistent rumors that Apple is going to once again make the screen a little bit bigger, and so much like we saw a bigger screen from the 6 to the 7, I think we're going to see a bigger screen from the 9 to the 10. Now, is it going to be the exact same size as the Apple Watch Ultra that you have on your wrist right now? Or is it going to be a little bit less? I don't know. One of the things that I learned when I tried out an Ultra just a few weeks ago is that although the case itself is much bigger for the Ultra, the actual screen is just a few pixels more. Now, those pixels can make a difference, because there are some things, like I really regret that the one thing I missed the most perhaps about the Ultra was that modular, I forget the name of it, but it was the watch screen that had all the different complications on it.
The modular
I missed
face.
that. Yeah, I like that face. And even though it's only a few more pixels, gosh, if the Series 10 could increase the screen enough to accommodate that watch face, I would love it. I really would. And likewise, for people that enjoy the workout features, you get space for just one more line of numbers when you're working out.
Love that.
And for me, it didn't make a difference because I don't pay attention to a ton of those numbers when I'm on the treadmill. But for some people that will, and so I do hope that this rumor is true, and that it's a little bit. Now, is it going to be the exact same as the Ultra? Is it this exact same size? Is it going to be a little bit smaller? I don't know. But that's one of the rumors, is that the face is going to be a little bit bigger. I have heard contradictory rumors on the width of it, how thick it's going to be. Some people have said it's going to be a little thicker,
height,
maybe not as thick as your Apple Watch Ultra, but a little bit thicker to accommodate a bigger battery. And then some people have said, no, just the opposite. It's going to be bigger, but squatter. It'll sort of be like the not the surface area, the volume. The volume will be similar, but it will just be squeezed down a little bit and spread out a little bit. I don't know, maybe. So that's number 2. So again, it's sort of fun that we don't know for sure. Maybe this weekend somebody's going to have the actual leak and it'll all be spoiled before Monday, but maybe not. Maybe we'll actually find out. We'll never really know for sure until the announcement is made on Monday. So that was one set of rumors, is all about things like that. There's also things like sensors. Apple does like to add sensors, and Apple is sort of in that bizarre situation right now where they had the blood oxygen sensor, and then because of a lawsuit, they have had to, it's still in there, but they have it turned off in the United States. And some people are wondering, will Apple, maybe one of their announcements on Monday will be that they've settled that lawsuit or something like that, and it's coming back for everybody. And then other people have said one of the potential new features, and this MacRumors article suggests that it could happen, is that you might have a sleep apnea and hypertension detection. But I've heard some people say, and again, I don't know because I don't know the science of this, but I've heard some people say that the technology used for sleep apnea and hypertension detection is that same blood oxygen sensor. And so, it's half hardware, it's mostly software, though. It's the patents, really. And so it's all confusing, but it would not surprise me if the Apple Watch has some new sensor on it to give you some new body measurement. And sleep apnea and hypertension, it would not surprise. That's the sort of thing that Apple would like to do. So I could definitely see that being part of it too.
I think we don't argue about the fact it's going to be faster. It's going to be a little
exactly. It'll have a new chip
because it's going to have a better chip. So most of us are going to be able to argue with that. I think regardless of how big or small or the same that the screen might be, hopefully it'll be a little more improved, maybe from the brightness aspect, because as you talked about it when you had that Ultra 2, like you could tell the difference in the nits, right? Like the brightness aspect of that. And I feel like that the regular Series 9 or the Series 10, it's at least going to have some of that like OLED display, like, because we've seen that in the iPad and stuff like that. So I feel like if nothing else, we can at least kind of hope that that's going to be it. But I feel like also, Jeff, like even the latest iPad Pro that came out, right? We talked a lot about this, how like it was thinner because they were able to spread out some more of the components, and they played around with like that the backbone is what I call it. That's in that iPad Pro. Like I'm hopeful that some of that aspect, design aspect maybe can come to this, so that we can see a little bit of the thinnerness aspect of it. I recall whichever watch that it was, that they rounded the corners a little bit more on the regular watch, right? So that the screen looked a little bit bigger. So that was almost like it's like a faking you out a little bit, but you felt like the screen was a little bit bigger. But that was good. Like I feel like we're going to see something along those lines, which I think will be good. Now, this article, just quickly, I'll point out one of the things that they don't think is going to be in there is some of the Apple Intelligence features, right? It's like it's probably not going to be able to handle some of that yet. But I feel like, Jeff, that even if it's not in there yet, I feel like some of the hardware will probably support it, so that once maybe it does come out, I mean, I could be totally wrong and off base. I'm not following that as closely, but I feel like that they're going to be at least setting up a little bit to do that.
I mean, there's always a certain degree of AI. I mean, even just the feature that when I double tap my fingers together on the Series 9 and on the Ultra 2, it causes, I mean, that is a version of AI. But when Apple uses the term Apple Intelligence, I think that they're referring to a special subset of AI that's going to just be available on the iPhone and the Mac and the iPad. I don't expect that to come to the Apple Watch. I mean, as we were discussing as we walked down memory lane, originally the Apple Watch was just an accessory, and then over time, with the addition of cellular and speed, it is more self-contained, but it's still not going to be as powerful as an iPhone. A day will come, I'm sure a day will come, where the AI on the watch will be just as sophisticated as it is. But I don't think that day is this year. I think that day is probably 5 years down the road. We've been talking about 10, but you mentioned it before, Brett, that do you think it's going to be the number 10? Do you think it's going to be the letter X like it was for the iPhone?
I don't know.
I don't know. I really don't know what it's going to be.
We did that with the iPhone, right? It went to the iPhone X, and I remember that was a significant product release back in the day. I don't know. I don't know if Apple is going to continue, some of that craziness. I mean, some people just felt like it was a pure marketing ploy, but I don't think it's going to matter that much. It's like I do believe that we're going to see some pretty significant improvements on Monday. The only thing that I haven't seen quickly from the rumor side, like everything is really focused on the Series 10 aspect, Jeff. Like I haven't seen too much from on the Ultra. Like I feel like we haven't got as many rumors of like, is there going to be a new Ultra? How much improved is it going to be? Because I didn't upgrade from the Ultra 1 to the 2 because I didn't think there was enough to do that. But anyway, we'll have to wait till Monday for that.
My prediction, and it's just totally off my gut, is I think we will see an Ultra 3, and I don't think it's going to be a major change, but I really do expect I expect the Apple Watch 10 to have a new processor that's going to have a little more oomph to it, and I think Apple's going to want to have that on the Ultra line too, because I think they're going to want the Ultra for the time being to be the biggest and best. And so the idea that an Apple Watch 10 would have a better processor than the Ultra, so it may not be much more that, I mean, maybe they'll make it, I don't even know what else they would do besides that. Maybe if there is a sensor that's added to the Apple Watch 10 for sleep apnea and hypertension, maybe that I could see that also coming to the Ultra. So I don't think it's going to be a big change between Ultra 2 to Ultra 3, but I do predict that there's going to be an Ultra 3. We'll see.
Just real quick on those new potential sensors, the hypertension, the sleep apnea. Before we get off the Apple Watch, let's just quickly talk about the Watch OS 11, because no matter if you get a brand new Apple Watch 10 or possibly the Ultra 3, you probably have a contemporary enough Apple Watch right now that you'll get at least to be able to use the Watch OS 11. But I'm thinking some of those sensors might tie in to some of the things we've been anticipating with Watch OS 11, which is going to be some of the Vitals apps, right? It's going to be better tracking for things, from the health aspect on that. Now, all of that may not be available unless maybe you have the Apple Watch 10 is what I'm thinking. But we're not going to know until Monday and I'm doing this. But what are the things that you're looking forward to in Watch OS 11?
Well, on that Vitals app specifically, to take advantage of the Vitals app, we already know that Apple's going to want you to wear your Apple Watch overnight. If you have an Apple Watch Ultra or an Ultra 2, that's easy peasy. If you have a brand new Apple Watch, like the 9 that I'm using right now, it's okay. I mean, you have to plan around it, but you could totally do it. I can it would not surprise me if the Apple Watch 10 has just a little bit better battery and maybe also a little bit
Okay.
better software to take advantage
Yeah.
of the battery, so that Apple can advertise that it has a longer battery life, not as long as the Ultra, but just longer enough that wearing it all night long is going to be a little bit less of a hassle than currently,
Yeah.
where again, it's okay if you have a new Apple Watch, but you do have to think about
Right.
charging it during the day. So that's one thing that I do think. Now, again, you'll be able to use the Vitals app even if you don't have a new Apple Watch. You'll just have to be that much more conscious of keeping your watch charged a
Yeah.
little bit during the day so that you can wear it all night long. So that's one thing. I also like that some of the silly features, but that you can pause your rings. So for example, if you want to have your
That's not silly.
your stand rings, your activity rings, so you
Yeah.
say, on this day, I'm just having an off day and I'm sitting at the beach all day and I'm not moving.
Right.
Or maybe I've had an accident, I'm in the hospital for 24 hours. I can't walk around.
Right.
But don't break my streak for that reason. It's just a one day off. I
Yeah.
think it's great that
My
Apple's
wife
gonna
is so
finally-
excited about this part, Jeff, because the Apple Watch does this. If you're close to finishing one of your rings in that day, it'll come up with a message and it'll say, you can still do it. And inevitably, my wife will yell at her Apple Watch and say, no, I can't. Leave me alone. So the fact that she's going to be able to pause her rings for a day, she is so excited about anticipating that little feature. It's so, I know it's not silly. That's good.
We had the same thing in my house too. So
Nice.
the page that you're showing off from Apple has some of the other changes and stuff. They're all minor. One thing that Apple has not shown us yet, at least I don't think they have. I'm pretty sure they have not, is a new watch face. But I do think it's possible we'll see a new watch face, because they do like to come out with one or two new watch faces. So that's probably something that they'll surprise us with on Monday.
Yeah, they are talking about this photos face, which we kind of already have, but I guess you'll be able to customize it a little bit more, maybe, or have some. I don't know. Like you said, once I got to the modular face on my Ultra watch, I kind of stayed there. But anyway, it's a great page. I'll link to it here. The one thing, just quickly, I will mention, I do this like when I walk a trail, like a hiking trail or something. I use an All Trails app, which I've talked about on here before. But apparently, some of that's going to be built into either the workout app or the Maps app, and that you'll be able to use some of that GPS tools even on your watch. So I'm excited to try that. I'm a huge fan of my All Trails app. I like doing that. But I'm anytime that Apple kind of Sherlock's an app, I'm interested to see what it can do. I may not switch to that, but anyway, that's one of the things that I'm going to be watching on that.
Me too.
Okay, I know we were going to talk a lot about the watch, and that's something we haven't really spent a lot of time on, but why don't we quickly go over a few other articles that you linked to about iOS 18 or things. Let's move to the phone. This was a great article from Andrew O'Hara. I watched this video because I just think it's great, and I'll link to it in the show notes as well, because it goes through and shows, he does a great article here of explaining what's different in the Photos app on your phone, but I enjoyed watching the video more because I could see what he was doing. And I got to tell you, I'm a little nervous about some of these changes. And Andrew does a really great job here of kind of showing both things. In fact, he shows like an older phone that he hasn't updated to the beta yet, and then he has like the updated phone. And I loved how he did that comparison in here.
The Photos app is an app that so many people use, and so many people are going to be adverse to change, that I do think it's going to ruffle some feathers when it comes out, because people are going to say
agreed.
like, oh, this is not what I've been using for the last 5 years. It's different.
Where's that
I will
button?
tell you though, although I'm not running the beta version on my iPhone or my iPad, I am running the beta version on my Apple Vision Pro, and there is a Photos app on my Apple Vision Pro. And so I have seen the Apple Vision Pro version of it, so I have it between looking at videos like the one that you're showing right now, and and my own experience. Admittedly, the Apple Vision Pro is different from an iPhone, but it's still the idea of using an app. It's probably closer to an iPad than an iPhone.
Similar enough.
I do have a sense of it, and I will tell you, after a couple of days, it all makes sense. The stuff's there. It's just sort of organized in a way that you're more prompted to take advantage of things that in the past you would have had to dig a little bit more to find, special collections and stuff like that. One thing, I've mentioned this a while ago, and I'll mention it again on one of our earlier podcasts, I think I did, is that it's a great new feature that, in addition to, how you can tag people in your photos, this is a picture of my mom, this is a picture of my wife, whatever. In addition to be able to say, okay, now show me all the pictures of Jack, you can actually have, or it will prompt you as a suggestion, would you like to see an album of all the pictures of Jack and Jill together? And it's actually pretty cool because and I talked about this, and it's not just that you're seeing the two of them together, but, it will often bring back memories of a special event that the two of them happen to be with that you wouldn't otherwise have. Pictures of all four, however big your family is. For me, it's four of us.
Right.
If there's a picture that has all four of us in it, it usually means that we were doing something special, like celebrating a birthday or on a vacation or something like that. And so yes, it has four of us in it, but what's more important is that it's showing an important event. So that's an example of the sort of features that are nice. It's made possible with this new interface in the Photos app. It's going to be a transition. Don't get me wrong. It's going to make a few people upset because of that. But I actually think in the long run, Apple, they're actually making a smart decision here, because what they're trying to do is say, look, we know you got a ton of pictures. We just want to help you find awesome pictures. And it does that. It really does.
In the video, Andrew does a great job, because I think he's got a similar approach that, like what you're saying, Jeff, that it's different. Once you get used to it, it's going to be great. But he starts right off at the very beginning. Gone are going to be those buttons at the bottom. When you open your Photos app, it's called Library. Then it has like For You, then Albums, and then the search. Those four buttons at the bottom are gone. And the first thing that made me think of is like, okay, this is Apple courage again, right? When they took away the headphone jack, everybody like was it up in arms. And I mean, just to your point, like the Photos app is one of the things that everybody goes into. Like this is something that everybody uses. And now, even if you like the buttons or didn't like the buttons, it's just different now in the way it's going to go. But again, I really commend this video from Andrew. He does a great job of like showing you how it's going to be different. And frankly, even just watching the first 2 or 3 minutes of this video, Jeff, I was like, okay, I can see where that's going to go. It's just that things are going to be moved around. And I was joking about the courage, but it does take a little courage, to do it. And I think it's just going to take a few days for folks to get around. For example, even like the sync indicator, I look at that all the time. I scroll to the very bottom of my photos and I look at sync, because sometimes I take a picture on my phone and I want to sync it over to my Mac, right? To be able to, paste it in somewhere or send it somewhere. So I usually look at that sync, because by default, the sync will not sync if you are on cellular data. You have to go in and like tell it, I want you to sync, even that you're not on Wi-Fi. And so I'll do that a lot. It'll tell me that, well, now that sync indicator is not at the very bottom. And he does a good job of showing it. It's in this kind of, what did he call it now? It's like a settings or profile that you can go into, and it'll show the same thing as there. But again, it's going to be different, and that's going to frustrate people right off the bat. But, I feel like if Apple does it right, maybe on Monday, showing it, putting out some good videos, they're very good about doing that on their YouTube channel, right, to show folks, then I think it'll be okay. But it's still going to get people upset on there. Speaking of the iPhone, if you have an iPhone 15, right, which has the action button on the side, not the clicker. There you go. Thank you. You are showing it very well there. There could be some additional actions available in iOS 18. This is a good article from Gadget Hacks that you linked to today, which it got me excited, because now maybe I'll try some additional things with my action button.
Yeah, and it's the first, in our prior iOS 17, there's a lot of different things you can do. iOS 18 is just a little bit deeper. So it's like even more types of camera controls, even more. It's like the same types of things, but even deeper. Which is nice. So it's interesting to do more. Of course, the real thing that interests me about the new iPhone is whether it has an additional button, but we talked about that last week. So
we talked about that last time. Yeah. But I do like this aspect here that, just in the set, because I think I admitted last week that I have always just left my action button on the default of like silence the phone, and it's kind of embarrassing. But they even show it in here, like maybe you can recognize music, so it can be a Shazam button, which I think would be great, because I have that as a widget now on my screen. So anyway, I feel like this is just going to be again, but that's only going to be applicable to people that have an iPhone that actually has an action button. But that's neat. Okay, before we move on about Monday, let's talk quickly about the iPad, and more specifically iPadOS 18, and an excellent writer that we like very much, John Voorhees over on MacStories. I thought did a fantastic job of going through what Apple showed off in a very compartmentalized a demo, which was this smart script, including things of like, in your handwriting, it'll pretty up your handwriting, or it can turn your handwriting into a font. And John just really, I thought, went into a lot of detail here to show kind of what he was nice to show like his own handwriting versus what the iPad will do with it. when it cleans it up in here. But this is good. I'm excited. I feel like this is going to be something people are going to have to just actually work on, because everybody's going to be a little bit different depending on your handwriting. But anyway, at least it's good that John has already been on it here.
Yeah, there's sort of two sets of things that this smart script does in iOS 18 and iPadOS 18, excuse me. One thing it can do is improve your handwriting, which is nice, I suppose. If you write something down and want to be able to share it with some others, why not have Apple improve your handwriting a little bit? So that's one thing.
Right.
But that doesn't interest me as much as the other set of changes, which is the idea that Smart Script can work with your handwritten words just as powerfully as you've always been able to do with text. So that, for example, if you have a misspelling, it can find a misspelling in your handwritten words and it can fix it. And of course, fixing it is like the example you're showing here is John wrote what looks like DOGZ for dogs, and he meant to put DOGS. But changing the Z to an S, I mean, that is a form of fixing your own handwriting, because it's adding the letter S that it is adding. It's not your handwriting. It's akin to that first feature I was talking about improving your handwriting. It has to know how to make letters that look somewhat similar to your letters. So that's one thing. But it's also just like if you've got like a block of text, we all know this. If you're writing a paragraph and you want to add one more sentence, well, that's fine, because the rest of your text just goes down a little bit, right? But when you have handwritten text, some of which might be going like around an object on the page or something, it requires smarter thinking in order to say, okay, I'm going to move this handwriting down here, and something that had been on the right now sort of needs to go to the left because it flows this way. So it is a different skill to do this. And so you can understand why it's taken Apple a while to come up with it, but I think it's going to be very interesting and useful. And you can even have, sort of related to this, is like if you have a whole page of notes and you want to copy some text, currently using different programs, you can copy the text and paste it, and what you paste will appear as like a typed word. But now you can actually make the part that you paste also be in something that looks like handwriting. And so this is actually what you were showing on the screen right there, that he's got pasted text just above his own text. And it sort of looks the same. And you could tell the difference because the part that he pasted at the top is a little bit neater than his own handwriting. But I say that because I know what to look for. If I just handed this to you and you just saw it, you would probably just say, oh yeah, this is all just somebody's handwriting. So it's nice to have those powerful tools for handwriting that we've had forever for typed text. So I'm actually looking forward to it. It's going to be in like the built-in Notes app. I'm curious. I think that third-party apps, like I use GoodNotes and other people use those, I think that they're going to have to integrate it. And many of those apps like GoodNotes already have their own version of some of this stuff, like handwriting fixing. So we'll have to see how it all gets implemented. But it's going to be cool.
I'm showing this little video that John posted in this in his article here, where he's literally, like you said, moving some of his handwriting out of the way, like making a space and then writing into that space. And I got to tell you, listening to you talk about this, Jeff, I remember when we first started using Notability and GoodNotes on the iPad, and we had the ability to what I just generally call the lasso tool, right? I could handwrite something and then I could use the lasso tool to circle my handwriting and then move my handwriting. Like that was such an amazing feat that I had never been able to do with a ballpoint pen on a piece of paper. And the fact that I could handwrite my notes and then move my handwriting around was just, it still blows me away. The fact that Apple is now incorporating some of these, like, to me, it blows me away. Like I can handwrite something and then I can just add a space as if I'm like in a word processor and moving text and like hitting return. The fact that we can do this, I feel like Apple is really going to be starting to change a little bit of how we handwrite notes. I mean, because now I hate when I write on a piece of paper, Jeff, and I make a mistake, but I can't lasso the ink on a piece of paper and move it around anymore. Like, in other words, I'm spoiled now. And I feel like if I start using some of these tools that Apple is implementing in the iPad, I'm going to hate to write on a piece of paper anymore because I'm not going to be able to be as flexible in some of that. And I guess as I was hearing you talk about this, I'm like, wow, like this is Apple changing how we handwrite changing in handwriting, like the
Yep.
expectations we're going to start having. Because my daughter, that's what she uses in college. Is now she has an iPad, and that's just what she takes notes on. And I feel like the next generation, this is exactly what they're going to be doing. And you do the same now as well. It's just that we started with pen on paper. Now so many people are starting with like on the iPad, and they're going to have those expectations. Anyway, that just gets me excited. But I was just kind of pointing that out. Like that's going to be pretty cool. How about some predictions, my friend Jeff? Can I impose on you quickly? So we've talked about all these things that we're looking for Monday. The new iPhone 16, hopefully, the new Apple Watch, and then iOS 18. I would like to hear your predictions on when you think these different devices are going to be available. We know that Apple's going to announce them on Monday, but when do you think we're actually get our grubby little hands on them, please?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this. We expect that the big announcements are going to be the phone and the watch. Apple doesn't like to have those become available on the same day because they just want to sort of space things out for their stores and stuff. And so
Anticipation.
let's start with the phone because the phone is the big announcement.
Okay.
Typically, Apple announces a phone 1 week. Now, again, typically it's on a Tuesday or Wednesday, not a Monday, but they will typically announce it 1 week, and then you'll be able to pre-order it starting the Friday of that week, and it'll be available the following week. And so my guess for the phone is that we're going to have the announcement on Monday the 9th. You'll be able to pre-order online on Friday the 13th, and then you'll be able to pick it up or have it delivered to you starting Friday the 20th. That's my prediction.
Okay.
So if you take that as true, so then the next question is, what do you do with the Apple Watch? My guess is that they're going to make the Apple Watch available before, not after the iPhone. And so I actually think that, and this is just my guess, but I think that on the 9th, when the announcement is done, you will immediately be able to go online and pre-order the Apple Watch on the 9th. And it will be available in stores that Friday the 13th. Now, again, I might be wrong on that, but that's my prediction.
I like your guess.
So then the final thing you have to say is, when is iOS 18 and iPadOS 18, all these things we were just talking about for the last 20 minutes, when is that going to be available?
OS, yeah.
It's got to be just before the iPhone for sure. But if the Apple Watch is going to come out early, I think it has to be before the Apple Watch as well. And so if I'm right about the Apple Watch coming out on Friday the 13th, I think it's going to probably come out on Thursday the 12th. But if I'm wrong about that, if I'm wrong and that the Apple Watch is actually going to be after the iPhone and not before the iPhone, or maybe the same day as the iPhone, although I don't think they would have them the same day, then it might go a few days into the next week. So, but suffice it to say, once September 9th comes, I think things are going to be moving. Crazy. I mean, it could be as soon as that event is over, I might be online ordering a new Apple Watch immediately, and then a few days later ordering the Apple iPhone. So that's my best guess as of now.
Okay, you heard it here, folks. We'll talk about it next Friday because we'll know. Maybe we'll even have a new watch by that time. It'll be great. All right, a couple of other things quickly. Where you at? Let's do a where you at quickly, because this was just a great story. Yet again, another AirTag story here. Let me see if I can get this opened on this. This time we are tracking plastic recycling. This is almost becoming like an AirTag session here. This was really cute. I love this. Apparently this is down in Houston, right? Houston, the city of Houston apparently says we'll recycle all plastic. But somebody got a little suspicious, thinking, well, wait a minute. Are you taking everything? Is it really getting in recycling? What's going on? And so somebody that is known as the James Bond of plastic recycling put an AirTag in various bags of her plastic recycling and tracked it all. I don't know. Did she want the AirTag to be recycled as well? I'm not really sure. But anyway, she tracked it, and it turns out she was able to see, and either she had a drone or somebody had a drone. They saw this location, which apparently had mounds and mounds of plastic recycling that were not being recycled. And she made a complaint to the city of Houston. I just thought this was really cute. What an innovative way to use an AirTag.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we use our AirTags because if somebody steals something or if we lose something, we can find it again. But then other times, you have these rare examples of somebody specifically putting an AirTag in an item that they know someone else is going to pick up for a legitimate reason here for, recycling purposes, but just because they want to see where it ends up. And those are actually always sort of interesting to me. And again, what a form of investigative journalism that she did is to figure out that all of this plastic recycling is ending up in one place. And once you could take a look at it with the drone, like you said, you could see that it was a pile. What it said, it was 250 tons of plastic that had just been piling up since 2022.
Yeah.
And look, I know that the whole issue of recycling is incredibly complicated. One of the problems is we want to do the right thing and recycle, but I also know that it's actually becoming so expensive that there's a question of is it worth recycling? Maybe what we should be doing is what Apple's trying to do, which is try to get rid of a lot of plastic. And like, for example, all of its product packaging is now the cardboard instead of plastic, specifically for that reason, that they can get away from making it in the first place. But I know it's a complicated problem, but nevertheless, it is certainly putting aside that issue about, the issue of recycling, just in terms of, I want to know where my trash ends up. I want to know where my recycling ends up. If you're willing to put a $25 AirTag in there, or get 4 of them for 100, or even 4 for 80, maybe for a discount on Amazon, spend 80 to $100 and you can see where those objects go. So it's clever that she did that.
You can throw an AirTag in the trash. Track your trash. It's all there for you. Okay, how about some Apple TV Plus? I feel like we need to make this into its own little section as well, Jeff, because you're so good about every week we come up with some of these things. But I specifically remember we talked last week about the director's cut of the Napoleon movie, and I made a joke because it's going to be so expansive. I was like, I'm excited to watch it on regular TV, but boy, I bet it looks good on an Apple Vision Pro. You took me serious on that. Thank you for reporting back on that.
We had the 3-day weekend last weekend, and so I was able to have a little extra time that I could sort of watch some stuff. And one of the things I watched was Napoleon, the director's cut version, which is 3.5 hours, so it was long. I had to take a break, not only because my Apple Vision Pro will only go for about 2 to 3 hours before it needs to be recharged, but like that's a long enough movie that I had to take a little intermission myself. But I enjoyed it. I had never seen the original version of Napoleon, so I could not say for sure, to compare the original to this one, but I did like this version of it. It was just truly epic. I mean, Ridley Scott, the director, did just an amazing job. When you're in these battles and you're in these vast scenes of the Paris or even from some of the battles, Russia and other places where they went in the late 1700s and early 1800s, it was just beautifully shot. I thought the plot was pretty good. I heard some people complain that the plot could have been more interesting. It was good enough for me. It was a story that I did not know all the details of. It held my attention and it kept me entertained for 3.5 hours, which was a good thing to say. So that was one of the things that I watched last weekend. And then the other one was The Lady in the Lake, which has been out for a little bit, although they just recently finished it. This was based upon a book that got lots of acclaim. And it's about a woman.
I don't know this very much.
Yeah, I tell you, it's really fascinating. I don't want to spoil it because it is a crime mystery thriller, so it's sort of a whodunit, and there are some twists in it, so I can't really speak to it. But I will say that the main two actresses in the show, which is Natalie Portman and Maddie Schwartz, are amazing. Natalie Portman, of course, I know her because she was in the Star Wars movies, way back when.
Oh yes.
But unlike the Star Wars movies that gave her, not the most interesting dialogue in the world, oh my goodness, in this one, I mean, she has her acting is incredible. It's definitely going to be up for, Emmys and all that other sort of stuff.
All right.
And it's interesting because as a part of the plot of the show, not only do you see her in the 60s, but you actually see her when she was younger and then eventually when she's older. And so I don't know if it's just all makeup that they were able to do it, but like when they show the young Natalie Portman, she truly looks like a teenager. And then when they show her much older, she's fantastic. But before I rave too much
that's
about
Apple
her,
Intelligence.
There you go, Apple Intelligence. The other co-star of the show is this woman named Maddie Schwartz, who I had never seen before. And I know she's done a couple of movies. Oh my goodness, she is a superstar. She was so fantastic in this show. I'm just beyond myself. I really enjoyed it. And some of the episodes are weird. Like I don't think it spoils anything to say that there's one episode that involves a lot of dream sequences and stuff. And so if I was watching this week to week, where like I could only watch one episode this week and then have to wait 7 days, that might have been a little frustrating. I preferred the idea that I could sort of slowly binge it, maybe 2 episodes tonight, maybe 2 or 3 the next night,
It really does look good.
So I watched it over a week and I enjoyed it. I recommend it. It was really good.
There's even a scene there with some very shaggy shag carpet. I saw she's vacuuming some shag carpet on there.
60s and 70s for sure.
Have you seen the Brad Pitt George Clooney movie yet? What is that?
So
Wolves, I believe.
it comes out later this month. At the end of
Oh, late.
September is when
Okay,
it comes
okay,
out. Yeah.
okay. But if you
But
want a preview of it, I read this. This was a great article, a
it
little
is a great
interview of
article.
both of them in JQ. What is it called? Like Hollywood BFFs. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
really funny. I read this before you even linked to it earlier this week, and it's a good read. It's a fun thing.
Yeah, these two actors have been megastars for, 30 years now, since the 90s, and they've been through a lot together. They've done some movies together. They've been probably considered for the same parts over the years, but they're clearly good friends. And so the idea of the interviewer to interview both of them together, which makes sense because they have the movie coming out, but it's a fun interview. And I tell you what, I so wish that I could have had like that fourth chair as they were having the interview, just to sort of hang out with them and listen to what they have to say. And he talks about the George Clooney laugh and everything else. It's these guys are too cool for school, that's for sure.
Good stuff on that. In the know.
In the know.
I have a correction from last week. In fact, I should bring this up. I don't know if I have a link on here, but I mentioned last week that was it Hawaii, right? Added the
Yes.
driver's license to the Apple Wallet. And it wasn't just a couple of months ago that Ohio, my own state of Ohio, added the driver's license to the Apple Wallet. So I remember we were talking last week about something. I can't remember specifically, Jeff. And I said that I could not access my driver's license information from the Apple Wallet because it was really meant to like tap on a TSA machine, which I haven't been able to use it for that. However, I was incorrect, and I am happy to admit this because I was happy to find out that you can see your driver's license information. So what I've done here is I've gone into my Apple Wallet. My driver's license is at the top of my wallet, of all the credit cards and stuff that I have.
Right.
Well,
right.
that it just says Brett and my last name initial, Brett B. That's all it says. And it says your Ohio driver's license is ready to use. So I could tap that on a TSA machine or whatever other machine, so that that machine or that computer can verify that I have the driver's license. But what I needed to show somebody is if I don't have my physical driver's license with me, how can I show like the expiration date or, the driver's license number? Well, in the upper right corner, there is a circle with an I in it. And if you tap on that, which most Apple Wallet cards have this, right? If you have a credit card in the Apple Wallet, well, it's actually like a circle with 3 dots in it, but you can get the card details. And that will actually not give you the full number, but it'll give you some of the billing address and some of the other information on there. Well, if I tap on my driver's license, it's a circle with an I in it, which is like information. And I can tap on that. And then there is a little item that says driver's license info. And if I tap on that, sure enough, it has my name, it has my address, it has my date of birth, it has, all of that information you would normally find. You like, the height, your eye color, your ID information, the expiration date. In other words, I think I was telling a story last week that I was at an event where I needed to show my license to get like a band, to be able to drink alcohol. And I didn't have my physical license with me. Fortunately, she looked at me and said, "Hey, you look old enough, guy, so I'm going to go ahead and do that for you." But I didn't have the ability to actually show that license, and I wish I had known that. I would have been able to pull this up and show all that. Now, it looks like somebody could have edited it. You can't edit it, but it looks like it could be editable, and so I suspect that some people may not trust that all the way. But I did just want to say a correction from last week that you can actually go in and see your driver's license information in there, and I wish I had known that, so I wanted to make sure people did. So thank you for letting me do that. It even has my restrictions on here because I have to drive with glasses now. So it'll even have the driving privileges and it'll show the restrictions on there just as if it was a physical card.
The convenience of being able to use the Apple Wallet app, I know, is very, very nice. I have to tell you that being in one of those rare states that has its own app, the LA Wallet app, it's actually pretty cool because, when you open that app, I can see what looks like a photocopy of my driver's license. So, it makes perfect sense. It's got a barcode on it so that if a police officer wanted it without even taking my iPhone out of my hand, he could just scan it and get the information. It's got right in big green letters that it's valid because it's constantly checking it when you have the app open. It shows 25 plus. So a vendor could instantly look at this from far away and see that I'm over 25. And I'm sure if I was just over 21, it would have that. If I was over 18, where you are, so it can easily see that, it's a nice app. But anyway, those are nice things to have. When I was thinking about what my tip for the week was going to be, I was just sitting there looking at my iPhone and I was thinking, well, what's something that I do all the time on my iPhone? And one of the things that jumped out at me was something that I've done on my iPhone for a very, very long time. In fact, I first wrote about it on iPhone JD, you're showing right here, back in
Look at
June of
that.
2010. So it's been 14 years ago.
2010.
But back then, Apple created the idea that you could even have folders on an iPhone. Imagine that, that you could put apps into a folder. And most of us just name our folders. But my tip was that why not have one folder that has all of the Apple apps that you don't really use a lot? Like maybe you don't use the stock apps, or maybe you don't use the Compass app. It's not that you never use them. It's just that you don't use them enough to be like on your home screen, but you want to have an easy place to go. And instead of typing out the word Apple, Apple, it's just, I think it's much more visually appealing. And also it just helps your eyes get drawn to it instantly if you put an Apple there. And so to this day, when I look on my iPhone, like I have my main screen, my first thing, and I have my second screen. But then once I get into my third screen, I just have folders. And one of those folders that it's so easily for my eye to see it, is the folder that has that Apple icon on it. And if I tap it open, I've got like 3 pages of all sorts of apps that I don't really use a lot. The iTunes Store app, iTunes U, the iMovie app. They're all those Apple apps are just in one place. But I love having that Apple icon there. And the reason I mentioned this tip is that you can't actually type the Apple icon with the keyboard. It is part of the vocabulary. It's sort of like it's almost an emoji, but I actually found this page that's called it. Emojipedia says it's not a true emoji because if it was a true emoji, it would be cross-platform. And if you look at this character on the Windows computer, like right now when you're showing it, you see where it says the word copy just above it, because you're using a Mac, Brett, it looks like an Apple. But if I open this same web page on my PC at work, I see this bizarre like circle with a squiggly thing at the top of it. Or if you had an Android phone, it is only on Apple devices that it displays this particular character. And so the point is that if you want to put that character as the name of a folder, you can't type it. You need a way to copy it and then paste it. And there's a million ways to do it. I mean, heck, if nothing else, we'll put a link in the show notes to this post that I did back in 2010, because in the second paragraph of my post, I actually have the word symbol, and then right next to it, I've got it. You could just copy that and paste it on your folder. Or I also recommended this thing called Glyphboard, which actually still works 14 years later if you want to do that, which not only lets you create the Apple logo, but it lets you copy and paste a bunch of other logos that you can't type, like the clubs and spades and hearts, like the card logos or trademark or some of these other things that you can use. But it's not so easy to type them. So anyway, but that's my tip, is that on your iPhone, why not create a single folder for all of your Apple apps that you don't use all the time? Put the Apple icon on it. It was a fantastic tip back in the year 2010. It is still just as good of a tip. Here we are in 2014, and maybe in 2038, I will remind people again, or 2028, or once again, 14 years later, remind people that it's still a good tip. So great tip.
Jeff, I remember you writing about this tip, because I remember looking at this, and either back in 2010 or I carried on the tradition, because I actually have 2 folders, app folders, on my initial home screen, and I continue for this day. One of them is all of the store apps that I have. Like I have for Starbucks coffee, Dunkin' Donut, Chick-fil-A, Chipotle, McDonald's, Papa John's, all of these apps that go for a particular store. I put them all into a folder, and then when I needed to name the folder, instead of actually typing out like stores or something like that, I can access the keyboard at that point, and I use just a simple emoji. For this folder, I use the emoji of a toilet because I want to remind myself that I'm just throwing money down the drain if I'm going in to use any of these apps. And it's sort of there. But I'm just saying, like, I have, I think, several dozen of these different apps, because every store has their own little app. And sometimes I use it because you get, points or money back or whatever. And so I will put all of those apps in a folder. So I'm just saying, I carried on this tradition from the original one that you did. Another one that I have is I put all of my social media apps into one folder. And for that, I didn't say, social media. I used the emoji I call it the Pinocchio face. It's like a face with like a long nose, to remind myself that if I go into that folder, I need to be truthful in what I say as opposed to, like, making something up, for example, in social media. Anyway, I'm just saying, I'm so glad that you mentioned this because I have carried on, and I just take it for granted because it's what I see on my screen. But I do this all the time. I even will put, like, I have a folder for all of my flying apps for different, airlines, and I do put the word flying there, but then I also have a picture of an airplane, and it just makes it a little bit interesting, that, like you said, just visually I can just jump right to it, and it's fun. So thank you for sharing that tip. That's like you said, it's something we continue to use even to this day, but we don't even think about it because it's just something we take for granted.
Yeah, I'll mention that since you mentioned it, that although the Apple one is special for me, and I like that one, and that's, I think, the best because it's just a very clear white Apple against a black background. You can, as you said, use emoji, and I have a folder with all of my apps that relate to the Apple Watch, and for them, I have the little watch emoji, which actually looks like an Apple Watch.
Good.
I have my travel folder is just the airplane. I don't even have the word flying like you do. Just the airplane alone is for that one. My financial apps is the emoji of a money bag. I have that.
Good.
My security apps, things like 1Password and my authenticators and stuff like that. I have a gold key, for unlocking a key. And then finally,
I like that.
For all of my weather-related apps, I have a sunshine emoji. So yes, I also have quite a few.
Sunshine,
hoping for sunny days. So yes,
but it's so fun. You know what? Hey, anybody listening, if you want to send us a quick little note of some kind, tell us what you are using emoji for your folders, because I don't even know that people use folders anymore. And one thing with iOS 18, we're going to be able to really customize how those apps look, on the home screen and everything. So it'll be interesting to see what people are going to do with that. But yeah, let us know, folks, if you have any special emojis. That'll be fun. It's going to be a fun week, Jeff, and I really can't wait to talk with you. I can't wait to talk with you next week, but we will talk with you next week, and we'll have a lot to talk about then.
It'll be exciting. Thanks, Brett. Bye-bye, everybody.